Okay, for today's lesson, you're going to need this sheet that says cylinder missing measure. So we've already learned a lot about different formulas for cylinders, pyramids, cones, and even spheres. And now today we're going to take it a little bit further where we know what the volume is, but we want to find these different missing measurements. So, like if you look at number one, it says V equals, which meaning that the volume of this cylinder is 1,847.3 inches cubed. So we look at the information that's given to us. We're given this measure right here, 7 inches, which stands for the radius right there, but we're missing our h for our height. Okay, so to start off, what I need to do is I need to know what the formula is for volume of a cylinder. And that's going to be pi times radius squared times height. So this is the formula I'm going to be using when I solve all these problems today. All right, so I'm going to set it up with V equals, and then I'm going to put pi. Pi is always going to be a constant number you're going to place there. And then the radius, if you know the radius, in this case we do, our radius is 7. So I'm going to put 7 squared, because it's radius squared, times height, which we don't know because we're trying to solve for h. Okay, so now it's just a basic equation that I want to solve for. I can simplify further. I know that v equals pi times 7 squared is 49 times h. Okay, if I want to get h by itself, what I need to do is to go ahead and isolate this h. But what I also forgot to do was to add this answer right here for my v, because we know what volume is. So I can even rewrite this further and say 1,847.3 equals pi times 49 times h. So if I want to isolate h, I need to get rid of these two pieces here because they're on the same side. I don't want them there. And I look to see how they're attached. They're both attached by multiplication. So the opposite would be to divide by those. And I can divide by both of those like that. I come over here, and I got to do the same thing. Okay, and it gets a little bit messy when you start dealing with pi. You got some bigger numbers there, especially long decimals. I know on the right side, the 49 is going to cancel, the h or the pi's cancel, and that leaves you with the h. But over here, I need to take 1,847.3, divide by, and because we got two numbers going on, I'm going to use parentheses just to make sure my calculator follows order of operations. So I'm going to put opening parentheses. If you have a pi key, I recommend you use that. If you don't, you can use 3.14. So pi times 49, closing parentheses. All right, and today we need to round to the nearest, I forgot to write directions up there, round to the nearest whole number. Okay, and we see here our height, it's going to be 12. We have this 0.00002 and so such forth, but that's because this final answer was rounded off, and we use pi in there, you get that really long decimal. So today we just want to round to the nearest whole number. It shouldn't be hard to pick out the nearest whole number because it should be pretty definite. And right here, we definitely see it's 12. So my h is 12, but then I also need to put the proper label on it. And here we're dealing with inches as our units, so it's going to be inches. Now the height is not inches squared, it's not inches cubed, it's only one measure. Therefore, it's just inches. Okay, my height is 12 inches. Moving on to number 2. So let's start off with use our formula. This time we know the answer, so let's set it up right now. So 1,244.1 equals, and then we got pi times radius squared times height. So let's do our pi times, let's see what else we got. We're given a radius, so 6 squared, and the height we don't know, so we're going to do it times h. Okay, so then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and simplify that further. 1,244.1 equals pi times 6 squared, I know is 36, times h. Okay, I want to isolate that h, so that means I need to do just like I did the last problem, divide by those two numbers there, pi and the 36. Come over here, do the same thing, divide by pi and 36. So my pi is canceled, 36 cancels, you're left with h on the right side. Okay, let's use that calculator. So let's type in 1,244.1 divided by, remember, let's use our parentheses. So opening parentheses, pi times 36, closing parentheses, equals. And again, we see that's really easy to figure out what our whole number is. It's going to be 11. Check the label here, and it's going to be 11 inches. So height is 11 inches. Okay, number 3. On number 3, to solve this one here, it is a little bit trickier if you're trying to find the radius, because this time it says r equals. But we're still going to set it up the same way. So we're going to take the volume, 18.8 equals pi times radius squared. We don't know what the radius is, times the height, which this time we're given the height as 6. Okay, now I'm going to isolate this radius squared. So to do that, I got to get rid of the pi, got to get rid of the 6. They're both being multiplied, so I can divide those in one step. Okay, come over here, do the same thing. So this cancels, you're left with radius squared. Okay, we're going to take 18.8 divided by, opening parentheses, pi times 6, closing parentheses, equals. And we do need to round this to the nearest whole number right now. So 0.997, we know that's extremely close to 1. So I'm going to say r squared is equal to 1. We're not finished yet, though, because I don't want to know what radius squared is. I want to know what just the radius is. And to go ahead and move from r squared to r, we would have to do the square root. And what I do to one side, I got to do to the other side. Now, in this case, it's not going to make any difference because our answer is still going to be 1, but that's only because that number was 1. Don't forget, I do need to put a label on here, and that's going to be centimeters because we're talking about centimeters here. And again, it's not squared, it's not cubed. So my radius is 1 centimeter. Okay, so moving over here, number 4. We're going to start off with, write our volume down, 942.5 equals. And on this one here, we got pi times radius squared, don't know what that is, and then times the height, which is 12. Okay, so I can go ahead and divide by pi times 12 to isolate radius squared. Come over here, do the same thing. So this cancels, that cancels. You're left with radius squared. And then use your calculator. Okay, so let's take 942.5 divided by, opening parentheses, pi times 12, closing parentheses. And we see there it comes out rounded to 25. Again, I don't want to know what my radius squared is. I want to know what my radius is. So I'm going to go ahead and take the square root. And out comes r. Square root of 25 is 5. Check your label. Centimeters. Okay. Now, if you look at this picture here is the entire dotted line across. The entire dotted line we know is not a radius. Instead, that is a diameter. Okay, so if they ask you what the diameter was, well, once you found the radius, you just double that, and that would be the diameter. So 10 centimeters would be your diameter. Okay, let's move on to number 5. Okay, number 5, we got, looks like we're finding the height on this one. So we're going to go ahead and write the volume down, 150.8 equals pi times the radius squared. Okay, look what you're given. You're given the whole line. So that's your diameter. So I know I got to take that 8, and I've got to divide that by 2 to get my radius. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. and then its radius squared, so it's 4 squared, okay, times the height, which we don't know, we're trying to solve. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify a little bit further. 150.8 equals pi times 16 for the 4 squared times h. Then we can divide. So pi times 16, come over here, pi times 16, and then simplify. So we get h. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do 150.8 divided by opening parentheses, pi times 16, closing parentheses. Round that to the nearest whole number, 3. We don't need to take the square root of anything because this is the height. It wasn't the radius squared. Don't forget when you put our label on that, it looks like we're talking about kilometers. So height equals 3 kilometers. All right, one more together. Number 6. Notice this time they're asking to find the diameter. So I'm going to start off same thing. Take that volume, 3,141.6 equals. And let's do, so pi times radius squared, because we don't know what the radius is right here. And then times the height, which they give us is 10. Okay, so I want to isolate that radius squared, which means I'm going to divide by pi times 10 right there. Come over here, divide by pi times 10. So cancels, we're left with r squared. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in 3,141.6 divided by opening parentheses, pi times 10, closing parentheses, equals. Let's round that nearest whole number. So we see that's going to be 100. And 100 equals radius squared, not my radius. So I want to take the square root, which gives you r, and the square root of 100 gives you 10. Okay, put your label on it. We're talking about meters. But if you looked at the original problem is asking to find the diameter. So radius we know is just from here out. And if our radius is 10, well, if I go the other way, there's another 10. So you just double it. So it's 20 meters. All right, you're going to go ahead now and solve number 7, number 8, number 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16.